Hey everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Rhythm. Today we've got a really cool artist spotlight lined up.
Yeah, definitely.
We're diving into the music of Mr. Nick.
Mr. Nick.
He's this English indie folk artist.
Okay.
And, he's been getting a lot of airplay both here in the U.S. and back in the U.K.
Interesting.
But what's really interesting is that his first band was actually signed to Factory Records.
Wow. Factory Records?
Yeah, the same label that had Joy Division and Happy Mondays.
Now that is a serious musical pedigree right there.
For sure. And we're going to be focusing on his latest single. It's called Find Your Peace.
I've heard some good things about this one.
Me too. It's already generating quite a bit of buzz, and it's got this unique blend of indie folk and indie pop.
Yeah, and I hear there's some world music influences in there too.
Exactly. It's a really interesting mix, so we're excited to break it all down today.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
So Find Your Peace. Right off the bat, you get this really uplifting and motivational vibe.
Absolutely.
It's catchy. You find yourself tapping your foot along to it.
It's definitely got that earworm quality.
Yeah. And it's not just, typical indie music. It's like he's blended those sounds from Manchester and Liverpool.
Right. The kind of indie rock sound we'd expect.
Yeah, exactly. But then he throws in these elements of African gospel and soul.
Okay, so can we talk a bit more about what that actually means? Like, how does that actually translate into the music?
Yeah, so it's subtle.
Yeah.
It's not like a full-on gospel choir, but there are hints of those harmonies.
Oh, okay, like in the backing vocals maybe?
Yeah, and there are moments where the rhythm section gets this kind of syncopated groove that you might hear in some African music.
I see. So it's not like he's directly copying those genres, but he's taking inspiration from them and incorporating those elements into his own sound.
Exactly. It's like he's creating this musical conversation between those different styles.
That's a great way to put it, a conversation between genres.
And speaking of conversations, Mr. Nick actually talked about how this sound came about in one of his interviews.
Oh, really? What did he say?
He said, where did the exciting new sound come from? It came from working with renowned Liverpool producer/musician Michael Holcroft.
Michael Holcroft. Okay.
Yeah, better known as Professor Yaffle.
Oh, right. Professor Yaffle. I know some of his work.
And Mr. Nick also worked with Lynn L. Yancey and a bunch of amazing African gospel and soul musicians.
Now, that's a collaboration I'd love to have witnessed.
So we should definitely highlight these collaborators because they each brought something really special to the table.
Absolutely. Let's start with Michael Holcroft.
Okay, Professor Yaffle.
Professor Yaffle, he's known for his kind of experimental approach to production.
Right. He's not afraid to push boundaries.
Yeah. And then you've got Lynn L. Yancey,
who brings this incredible depth of knowledge in gospel and soul music.
Exactly. She really understands the nuances of those genres.
And let's not forget Tunu Joe's gospel choir.
Oh, yeah. They add that authentic gospel feel to the track.
And Sola.
Sola, yeah. Such a talented vocalist.
And there's James Brownfield on trumpet and saxophone.
Ooh, horns always add a nice touch.
Yeah. And Mike Smith as well, though we're not sure which instrument he played on this track.
Well, whatever he played, I'm sure it was good.
Definitely.
So it's clear that Mr. Nick surrounded himself with incredibly talented musicians for this project.
Yeah, and you can hear how each of those musicians contributes to the overall feel of the song.
It's like a tapestry of sound with all these different threads woven together.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
So we've talked about the indie influences, the gospel and soul elements, the incredible collaborators.
What's the final verdict? What do we think of Find Your Peace?
Well, for me, it's a really successful fusion of genres.
I agree. It's catchy, it's uplifting, and it's definitely something you haven't heard before.
Yeah, it's fresh, it's unique, and it makes you want to hear more from Mr. Nick.
Definitely. And I'm curious to see what he does next. If he'll continue to experiment with these different genres or if he'll go in a completely different direction.
Well, that's the beauty of music, isn't it? You never know what an artist is going to do next.
That's true. And I think that's what makes it so exciting to follow artists like Mr. Nick who aren't afraid to take risks and try new things.
Absolutely. So if you're a fan of indie folk, indie pop, or even gospel and soul.
Or just good music in general.
Yeah, just good music in general. You should definitely check out Find Your Peace by Mr. Nick.
You won't regret it.
It really makes you think about other artists who have blended seemingly different genres together successfully.
Yeah, like who else comes to mind when you think about musical fusion done right?
That's a great question for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah, it's something to think about while you're listening to Find Your Peace.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's Artist Spotlight on Mr. Nick.
It's been a pleasure diving into his music.
Thanks for joining us.
And keep those ears open for more great music.
This episode of Behind the Rhythm was brought to you by Ant Taylor for the Bayplay Radio and Sonic Gumbo Radio Network.
Thank you for joining us for this Artist Spotlight.
Be sure to explore more from Mr. Nick on all streaming platforms.
As always, have fun, be kind, and be well.
Please come back again for another exciting episode.
Until next time.
We're out.
Yeah, peace out.
See ya.